On Thanksgiving morning at a drive-thru coffee shop, I paid for the car behind me, a simple act of kindness. But before I left, the cashier said, "Ma'am, the man in that car has been following you for 3 days." I looked in my rearview mirror and screamed in panic when I saw who it was. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. I've always believed in small acts of kindness. At 63, I've learned that life's greatest gifts often come wrapped in the simplest gestures. That Thanksgiving morning, as frost laced the coffee shop windows and my breath misted in the cold Vermont air, I decided to pay for the person behind me in the drive-thru line. It was something I did occasionally, a quiet way to spread a little warmth on holidays that could feel impossibly lonely. 4 years. 4 years since Donald disappeared. The cashier, a young woman named Emma with tired eyes and a name tag pinned crookedly to her uniform, took my card with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd worked too many holiday shifts. "That's really nice of you, ma'am," she said, glancing at her screen. "The gentleman behind you ordered a large black coffee and—" She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes darting to her rearview camera monitor, then back to me with an expression that made my stomach tighten. "Ma'am, is that— do you know that man? In the silver Accord? I just wanted to do something kind," I said, confused by her sudden intensity. "Why?" Emma leaned closer, lowering her voice even though we were separated by a pane of glass. "I shouldn't say this, but I've seen him before. 3 days in a row now, always at the same time you come through. Yesterday, I watched him follow you out of the parking lot. I thought maybe he was your husband or something, but the way he hangs back—" She trailed off, clearly uncomfortable. "I noticed because my ex used to follow me like that, before things got bad." The world seemed to tilt sideways. My hands trembled as I adjusted my rearview mirror, angling it to see the car behind me more clearly. Silver Honda Accord, Virginia plates. The morning sun cut across the windshield, obscuring the driver's face, but something about the shape of his shoulders, the way he held his head slightly tilted to the left. My coffee slipped from my grip, splashing across my lap. I barely felt the heat. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Emma's voice sounded distant, muffled. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, because even through the glare and the 4 years of absence and the impossibility of it all, I knew those shoulders. I knew that posture. I knew the man who'd shared my bed for 31 years before vanishing without a trace on a Tuesday afternoon in November 2020. Donald. My husband was following me. I don't remember putting my car in park. I don't remember opening the door or crossing the few feet of pavement between us. All I remember is the moment his window rolled down and I saw his face. Older, thinner, with new lines carved deep around his eyes and mouth, but unmistakably Donald Morrison, the man I'd mourned and raged at and never stopped loving. "Helen," he said quietly, and hearing my name in his voice after all this time made something crack open inside my chest. "You're alive." The words came out strangled, barely audible. "You're— Donald, where have you been?" 4 years. 4 years, and the police found nothing, and everyone told me to accept that you were gone, and I was shaking so hard I had to grip the car door to stay upright. His expression remained eerily calm, almost blank. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to frighten you." "Frighten me? Donald, you disappeared. No note, no phone call, no body, nothing. And now you're following me through coffee shop drive-thrus? It's a coincidence." His voice had a rehearsed quality, like he was reading from a script someone else had written. "I'm in town for work this week. I didn't expect to see you." The lie was so transparent, so insulting, that for a moment I could only stare at him. Behind us, a car honked. Emma was watching from her window, phone in hand, clearly debating whether to call the police. "A coincidence," I repeated slowly. 3 days running, following my exact route at my exact time. Something flickered in his eyes then. Confusion, maybe, or fear. His hands gripped the steering wheel with white-knuckled intensity. "I should go. I'm late for an appointment." "Donald, wait." But he was already pulling away, and I was standing in the middle of the drive-thru lane in my coffee-stained sweater, watching my supposedly dead husband disappear into morning traffic for the second time in 4 years. I made it back to my car on autopilot, dimly aware of Emma rushing out with napkins and concern, of other customers pulling around me with irritated glances. My phone was in my hand before I consciously decided to call anyone, and somehow I found myself dialing my son, Ryan. "Mom? Isn't it a little early for the Thanksgiving guilt call?" His tone was joking, but I could hear the edge beneath it. Ryan had been patient with my grief, but his patience had worn thin over the past year. He wanted me to move on, sell the house, maybe relocate closer to him and his wife, Lillian, in Connecticut. "Your father's alive." Silence. Then, "Mom, I just saw him. At the Riverside Coffee Hut. He was following me, Ryan. Emma, the cashier. She recognized him from the past 3 days. He's been watching me." "Mom, we've talked about this." Ryan's voice shifted into that careful, therapeutic tone he used when he thought I was being irrational. "Dad's gone. I know it's hard, especially on holidays, but you can't—" "I spoke to him." My voice cracked with frustration. "He rolled down his window. He knew my name. He told me he was in town for work." Another pause, longer this time. I could hear muffled conversation in the background. Ryan covering the phone to talk to Lillian, no doubt. When he came back, his tone had changed to something worse than skepticism. Pity. "Where are you right now?" "Still at the coffee shop. I want you to drive straight home. Lock the doors. I'm going to call Dr. Holmes and see if she can fit you in today. Sometimes grief can—" I hung up before he could finish patronizing me with psychology textbook explanations for what I'd seen with my own eyes. My hands were still shaking, but beneath the shock, something else was crystallizing. Determination. Donald was alive. After 4 years of police investigations that went nowhere, of hiring a private investigator who'd drained half my savings before admitting he had no leads, of well-meaning friends suggesting I declare Donald legally dead and collect his life insurance, after all of that, he was here, in Riverside, following me, and he'd lied about why. I started my car and pulled out of the parking lot, but instead of heading home, I made a split-second decision that would change everything. I turned left, following the direction Donald had gone, keeping enough distance that he wouldn't immediately notice me in his rearview mirror. If he'd been following me, I could follow him. The silver Accord wound through Riverside's familiar streets, past the elementary school where Ryan had learned to read, past the church where Donald and I had renewed our vows on our 20th anniversary, past the post office where I'd filed missing person reports until the clerk started looking at me with open sympathy. We were heading toward the industrial district on the east side of town, an area I rarely visited. Donald pulled into the parking lot of a long, low building with a faded sign, Riverside Storage Solutions. He sat in his car for several minutes, and I watched from behind a panel van 2 rows over, my heart hammering against my ribs. Was this where he'd been living? Had he rented a storage unit to hide his belongings? Or himself? Finally, he got out of the car, and that's when I saw how much 4 years had changed him. Donald had always been meticulous about his appearance. Pressed shirts, shoes polished to a mirror shine, hair trimmed every 3 weeks like clockwork. The man walking toward the storage building moved with an uncertain shuffle, his jacket wrinkled, his hair grown long and unkempt. He looked diminished somehow, as if the years had hollowed him out from the inside. I waited until he disappeared into the building before getting out of my car. The November wind bit through my sweater as I approached the entrance, trying to look casual, like any other customer. Through the glass door, I could see a small office area and a hallway lined with unit doors. Donald was visible at the far end, fumbling with a key at Unit 247. "Can I help you?" I nearly jumped out of my skin. A young man in a Riverside Storage polo shirt had materialized beside me, holding a clipboard and looking mildly curious. Yes, I'm looking into renting a unit for my daughter's college furniture." The lie came easily, surprising me with its smoothness. The employee launched into a well-practiced spiel about unit sizes and monthly rates, but I was only half listening, watching Donald finally get his door open and disappear inside the unit. "Could I see the units?" I interrupted. "To get a sense of the sizes?" "Sure thing. Let me grab the keys." As the employee turned back toward the office, I made my second impulsive decision of the morning. The moment his back was turned, I slipped past him and headed down the hallway, moving as quickly and quietly as my 63-year-old knees would allow. Unit 247's door was ajar. Inside, I could hear Donald moving around, the sound of boxes being shifted. I pressed myself against the wall beside the door, straining to hear. "Told you I would handle it." Donald's voice, but strained, defensive. He was on the phone. "No, I haven't forgotten. Tuesday. I know. I'll have everything ready." A pause. Then, in a voice that made my blood run cold. "No, she didn't recognize me. Or if she did, it doesn't matter. You said the medication would keep things confused enough that the medication would keep things confused." My mind reeled. Someone was drugging Donald. Someone was controlling him, using him, and he was aware enough to sound resentful about it, but not aware enough to… what? Leave? Get help? Remember who he really was? "Ma'am?" The storage employee's voice echoed down the hallway, accompanied by jingling keys. "Ma'am, you can't go back there without…" I didn't wait to hear the rest. I pushed away from the wall and hurried back toward the entrance, my heart racing, my mind spinning with fragments of truth that didn't yet form a complete picture. But I'd heard enough to know three things with absolute certainty. Donald was alive, but not himself. Someone had been drugging him for years, keeping him controlled and confused. And whoever was pulling the strings knew that I'd seen him today, which meant they knew I was now a threat to whatever scheme they were running. I made it to my car just as Donald emerged from the building, his phone still pressed to his ear, his expression troubled. For just a moment, our eyes met across the parking lot, and I saw something flicker in his face. Recognition, maybe, or warning. Then he looked away, climbed into his car, and drove off without a backward glance. I sat in my own car, hands trembling on the steering wheel, as pieces of the past 4 years began rearranging themselves in my mind. The police had found Donald's car abandoned at a hiking trail 2 hours away, his wallet and phone inside. No signs of struggle. They'd searched for weeks, dragged the nearby lake, questioned everyone we knew. The prevailing theory had been suicide, though they'd never found a body. I'd never believed it. Donald had been planning our retirement, talking about finally taking that trip to Ireland we'd always dreamed about. But if someone had been drugging him, controlling him, keeping him hidden in plain sight while using his identity, his resources… My phone rang. Ryan again. I let it go to voicemail. Instead, I opened my contacts and scrolled to a name I hadn't called in over a year. Detective Agnes Wolcott, the officer who'd led the initial investigation into Donald's disappearance. She'd been kind, but ultimately helpless, bound by rules and evidence and the bureaucratic machinery of an underfunded police department. But she'd also given me her cell number and told me to call if I ever had new information. I had new information now. I had a sighting, a location, and the chilling words I'd overheard. "You said the medication would keep things confused." As I sat in that parking lot, watching ordinary people come and go from the storage facility, dealing with the mundane tasks of moving furniture and storing seasonal decorations, I made a decision. I'd lost 4 years to grief and helplessness. I'd let well-meaning people convince me to let go, move on, accept the unacceptable. But Donald was alive. And if someone had stolen him from me, had been using him all this time, drugging him, controlling him, keeping him prisoner even while he walked around free, then I wasn't going to rest until I uncovered every last detail of what had been done to my husband, even if that meant discovering truths I wasn't prepared to face, even if it meant my own family wouldn't believe me, even if it meant putting myself directly in the path of whoever had orchestrated Donald's disappearance. I started my car and pulled out of the parking lot, glancing one last time at Unit 247. Whatever was hidden behind that door, whatever Donald had been doing there, that was my next secret to uncover. But first, I needed to find out who had been on the other end of that phone call, and why they were so certain that keeping Donald confused was worth the risk of whatever elaborate scheme they were running. The question that haunted me as I drove home wasn't just where has Donald been? It was, who benefits from making him disappear? I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to the Riverside Public Library, a place where I could think clearly and access resources without Ryan monitoring my phone calls. Or Lillian showing up with concerned expressions and pamphlets about grief counseling. The library was nearly empty on Thanksgiving morning. Just Mrs. Patterson at the circulation desk and a handful of college students home for the holiday, hunched over laptops in the study carrels. I claimed a corner table near the reference section and pulled out my notebook, the same one I'd used during the initial investigation 4 years ago. Page after page of dead ends, police reports, private investigator invoices, bank statements showing Donald's accounts untouched since his disappearance. But now, with what I'd witnessed this morning, those facts took on new significance. If someone had been controlling Donald, they wouldn't use his accounts. That would trigger alerts, draw attention. They'd need another way to access his resources. I opened my laptop and logged into the county property records database. Donald and I owned our house jointly, plus a small commercial property downtown that we'd inherited from his mother, a 2-story building that housed a cafe on the ground floor and a vacant apartment above. I'd kept the property out of sentiment, even though the rental income barely covered the maintenance costs. The records loaded slowly. When they finally appeared, my breath caught. The commercial property had been transferred to a limited liability company 3 years ago, Morrison Holdings, LLC. The transfer was dated 6 months after Donald disappeared, executed through a power of attorney I'd never signed. My hands went cold. Someone had forged documents and stolen our property. Helen? Is that you? I slammed my laptop shut, heart racing. Detective Agnes Wolcott stood beside my table, holding a stack of books about criminal psychology, presumably research for her cases. She'd aged since I'd last seen her, new gray streaks threading through her dark hair, but her eyes were as sharp as I remembered. Detective Wolcott, I was just about to call you. She glanced at my notebook, at the closed laptop, and something in her expression shifted. You found something. It wasn't a question. Agnes had always been perceptive, one of the reasons I'd trusted her during the investigation. She pulled out the chair across from me without waiting for an invitation. Tell me. So I did. Everything. The coffee shop encounter, following Donald to the storage facility, the overheard phone conversation about medication keeping him confused. Agnes listened without interrupting, her expression growing progressively grimmer. And there's more, I said, turning my laptop to show her the property records. Someone transferred our commercial property using a forged power of attorney. Donald never would have agreed to that transfer, and I certainly didn't sign anything. Agnes studied the screen, her jaw tightening. Morrison Holdings, LLC. Do you know who's behind it? No. The ownership is hidden behind another corporate entity. I'd need a lawyer to untangle it. Or a subpoena. Agnes pulled out her phone. Helen, what you're describing, if Donald's being held against his will, even if he's physically free to move around, that's kidnapping. If someone's drugging him to maintain control, that's assault. And this property transfer is definitely fraud. Hope flared in my chest for the first time in hours. Then you can help him? You can investigate? Agnes's expression turned regretful. I can file a report. But Helen, you need to understand, this is going to be complicated. You saw Donald, but did he ask for help? Did he indicate he was being held against his will? He lied to me. He said it was a coincidence that he was in town, but I heard him on that phone call. You heard one side of a phone conversation while standing outside a storage unit you entered under false pretenses. Agnes's tone was gentle but firm. I believe you. But for the department to allocate resources, especially after the case has been cold for 4 years, I need more than your statement. I need evidence that would hold up in court. The hope guttered out as quickly as it had ignited. So, I'm on my own. I didn't say that. Agnes leaned forward. I said I need evidence. You're in a unique position to gather that evidence. You're Donald's wife. You have every legal right to investigate your own husband's whereabouts and the fraudulent transfer of jointly owned property. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Be careful. If someone has been controlling Donald for 4 years, they've gone to extraordinary lengths to maintain that control. They won't appreciate you disrupting their arrangement. After Agnes left, promising to look into Morrison Holdings LLC through official channels, I sat alone with my thoughts and my growing dread. The library felt suddenly oppressive. The fluorescent lights too bright, every sound amplified. My phone buzzed. Ryan, again. This time I answered. Mom, where are you? I've been calling for hours. It's been 90 minutes, Ryan. Dr. Holmes can see you at 2 o'clock. I told her about the episode this morning. It wasn't an episode. I saw your father. He's alive. A long sigh. Mom, Lillian and I are coming up for Thanksgiving dinner tonight, remember? We can talk about this then, in person, with Dr. Holmes on standby if needed. The careful way he said it, like I was a bomb that might detonate, made something harden in my chest. My own son thought I was having a breakdown. I have to go, I said. I'll see you tonight. Mom, wait! I hung up and silenced my phone. Then I gathered my things and headed out to my car, a plan forming. If no one would help me, I'd help myself. I'd start by visiting that commercial property and finding out exactly what Morrison Holdings LLC was doing with my building. The drive downtown took 15 minutes. The cafe, Terra Grounds, had been a riverside fixture for years, run by a rotating cast of young entrepreneurs who inevitably moved on to bigger ventures. The current owner was a woman named Jade Somebody, whom I'd met exactly once when she'd signed the lease 2 years ago. I parked across the street and studied the building. The cafe looked busy despite the holiday, customers visible through the large front windows. But it was the apartment above that interested me, the vacant space that should have been empty. Except the windows weren't dark. Through the sheer curtains, I could see lights on, shadows moving. Someone was living in my property. I crossed the street and entered the cafe, the warm smell of coffee and cinnamon overwhelming after the cold outside. Jade was behind the counter, a woman in her early 30s with sleeve tattoos and a competent air. She recognized me immediately. Mrs. Morrison, happy Thanksgiving. Are you here for coffee? We've got a special pumpkin blend. I'm actually here about the apartment upstairs, I said, keeping my voice casual. I wanted to schedule some maintenance before we list it for rent. When would be a convenient time to access it? Jade's friendly expression flickered with confusion. The apartment? But it's occupied. Has been for almost 2 years now. My stomach dropped. Occupied? By whom? Your property manager arranged it. Ms. Morrison? The woman who handles the building for you? The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. What woman? Jade, I don't have a property manager. I own this building jointly with my husband. Now Jade looked genuinely alarmed. But Ms. Morrison comes by every month to collect the rent. She said she was managing the property for you, that you'd moved away after your husband. I'm so sorry, I should have verified. But she had keys and documentation and… What does she look like? Tall, maybe late 30s. Dark hair, always very professional. She drives a black Mercedes. I have her phone number if… Yes, please. Jade scrambled for her phone, pulling up the contact. As she turned the screen toward me, I felt the world narrow to a single point of horrifying clarity. The name in the contact, C. Morrison. And below it, a photo Jade had apparently snapped at some point. A woman standing in front of the building, smiling confidently at the camera. Christina Morrison, Donald's daughter from his first marriage. The daughter he hadn't spoken to in over a decade, after she'd stolen money from his business and tried to forge his signature on loan documents. The daughter I'd only met twice, both times ending in screaming matches about her sense of entitlement to Donald's money. The daughter who'd sent a brief, cold condolence card after Donald disappeared and then vanished from our lives completely. Mrs. Morrison, are you okay? You've gone very pale. I gripped the counter to steady myself. When did she last come by? Tuesday. She always comes the last Tuesday of the month. Jade was looking at me with growing concern. Should I not have been paying her? Is something wrong? Everything was wrong. Christina had somehow gained control of our property, was collecting rent illegally, and based on the timeline, had likely orchestrated everything the moment Donald disappeared. No, not the moment he disappeared. Before. Because you don't forge power of attorney documents and establish shell companies overnight. This had been planned. Carefully. Meticulously. And if Christina had gone to such lengths to steal our property, what had she done to Donald himself? I need to see the apartment, I said. Now. But the tenant is living in my property illegally, paying rent to someone who has no right to collect it. Either you let me in, or I call the police and we sort this out with them present. Jade paled but nodded, grabbing a keyring from behind the counter. The tenant's name is Michael Alvarez. He works night shifts, so he's probably sleeping. Please, Mrs. Morrison, he's a good guy. He had no idea anything was wrong. We climbed the narrow stairs to the second floor. My legs felt leaden, my mind racing with implications I wasn't ready to face. Jade knocked softly on the apartment door. Mr. Alvarez? It's Jade from downstairs. I'm really sorry to disturb you, but there's been a mix-up with the property management. The actual owner needs to speak with you. Silence. Then footsteps, slow and cautious. The door opened a crack, security chain still engaged. A man peered out, early 50s, tired eyes, wearing scrubs from Riverside Medical Center. What's going on? I'm Helen Morrison. I own this building. I need to know who arranged your lease and what you know about the woman calling herself C. Morrison. Something changed in Michael Alvarez's expression. Fear, maybe, or recognition. I don't want any trouble. I paid my rent. I always pay on time. You're not in trouble, Mr. Alvarez. But I need information, please. He studied me for a long moment, then unhooked the chain. You'd better come in. The apartment was sparsely furnished. A couch, a small dining table, a coffee maker. But what caught my attention was the desk in the corner, covered with papers, file folders, and a laptop connected to multiple external hard drives. You're going to think I'm crazy, Michael said quietly, closing the door behind us. But about 6 months ago, I started noticing things. Ms. Morrison, Christina, she'd come by to collect rent, and sometimes she'd have another person with her, an older man. He looked, I don't know, confused. Medicated, maybe. I'm a nurse, so I noticed these things. My breath caught. Describe him. Gray hair, maybe mid-60s, thin. She'd keep him in the hallway while we talked, like she didn't want me to interact with him. But once, when she was distracted, he looked right at me and said something strange. He said, "Do you know the way home?" Tears burned my eyes. That was Donald. My Donald. Asking a stranger for help in the only way he could. I started paying attention after that, Michael continued. Christina uses this building for something, not just collecting rent. Every few weeks late at night I hear people in the storage room downstairs, moving things, heavy boxes. I thought maybe drugs, but he gestured to his desk. I'm probably going to lose my apartment for this, but I started documenting everything. Dates, times, photos when I could get them without being seen, because that man looked like he needed help. He opened a file folder and spread photographs across the desk. Christina entering the building at 2 a.m. Christina with 2 men I didn't recognize, loading boxes into a van. And there, in 3 different photos, Donald, standing in the shadows, his expression vacant and lost. There's more, Michael said. Financial records. I shouldn't have these, but Christina left some paperwork in the storage room once. I photographed it before she came back. He pulled up files on his laptop. Morrison Holdings LLC is a shell company, but it's connected to at least 4 other businesses, all funneling money through complex transactions. I think she's using your husband's identity for some kind of fraud scheme. I couldn't speak. Couldn't process the magnitude of what I was seeing. Christina hadn't just stolen our property. She'd stolen Donald's entire identity, was using him as a puppet for criminal enterprises, keeping him drugged and compliant while she destroyed everything we'd built. Why didn't you go to the police? Jade asked, her voice small. I tried. They said without proof he was being held against his will, they couldn't do anything. And Christina's smart. She never actually threatens him where anyone can hear. She just controls him. Medications, probably. Psychological manipulation. I've seen it before in elder abuse cases. My phone rang. Despite having silenced it, the emergency bypass I'd set for Ryan's number years ago overrode my settings. I answered without thinking. Mom, where are you? It's almost 2 o'clock. Ryan, I need you to listen. No, you need to listen. Lillian and I are at your house. We let ourselves in with the spare key. Mom, we're worried about you. Dr. Holmes is on her way. We're going to figure this out together. Behind him, I heard Lillian's voice. Ryan, maybe we should call for an evaluation. If she's having delusions about your father, an evaluation. They wanted to have me committed. I have to go, I whispered. Mom, don't hang up. Stay where you are. We're coming to get you. I ended the call and turned to Michael Alvarez. I need copies of everything you have. Right now. Can you email them to me? Are you going to the police? Eventually. But first, I'm going to find my husband and get him away from his daughter before she realizes I know what she's done. Mrs. Morrison, Jade said carefully, maybe you should wait for your family, get some help. This sounds really dangerous. But I was already thinking ahead, planning. Christina collected rent the last Tuesday of every month. That was in 4 days, which meant she'd be here, vulnerable, accessible. And if Donald was with her, if I could just talk to him, remind him of who he really was. Michael was already typing, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Sending everything now. But Mrs. Morrison? Be careful. Christina's got resources and connections I couldn't trace. And if she finds out you're investigating... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. My phone buzzed with the email notification just as I heard cars pulling up outside. Through the window, I saw Ryan's BMW and, behind it, a sedan I recognized as Dr. Holmes's vehicle. They'd come to collect me, to protect me from myself, to make me a patient instead of believing me as a witness. Is there a back way out? I asked urgently. Jade pointed to a door at the end of the hall. Fire escape. But Mrs. Morrison! I was already moving, clutching my phone with its precious cargo of evidence, my mind racing with a new understanding of just how much danger I was in. Christina had spent 4 years building her criminal empire using Donald's identity. She'd drugged him, controlled him, isolated him from everyone who might help. And now that I'd seen Donald, now that I'd uncovered the property fraud, I'd become the one thing Christina couldn't afford. A witness who knew the truth and wouldn't stop asking questions. As I descended the fire escape, my phone rang again. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mrs. Morrison. A woman's voice smooth and cold. I think it's time we had a conversation about your husband and about what happens to people who interfere in family business. Christina. And somehow, she already knew I'd found Michael Alvarez. I stood on the fire escape, frozen, as Christina's voice filled my ear with its calculated menace. How did you get this number? I managed to ask, though my voice shook. Mrs. Morrison, may I call you Helen? After all, we're family. Her laugh was brittle, artificial. I've had your number for 4 years. I've had access to everything. Your bank accounts, your property records, your medical files. Did you really think I wouldn't notice when you started asking questions? Below me, I could see Ryan and Lillian entering the building with Dr. Holmes. Through the window, I watched them climb the stairs to Michael Alvarez's apartment. I had maybe 2 minutes before they realized I'd fled. What have you done to Donald? I've taken care of him. Better than you ever did, certainly. My father was always too soft, too sentimental. All those years wasting his potential on a quiet life with you, when he could have been building something significant. Christina's voice hardened. He's finally useful now, finally contributing to something that matters. You're drugging him, using him for fraud. I'm managing his assets efficiently. There's a difference. And he's perfectly safe, as long as certain people don't create complications. The threat was unmistakable. I'm watching you right now, Helen, standing on that fire escape like a common criminal. Quite a change from the respectable widow playing bridge at the community center. My blood ran cold. I scanned the street, the windows of surrounding buildings. Where was she? How was she watching me? I know you spoke with Michael Alvarez, Christina continued. I know he gave you copies of documents he had no right to possess. Documents that, I should mention, were obtained through illegal means and won't hold up in any court. But they could make things messy for everyone, including Donald. You can't threaten me with my own husband. Can't I? Her voice dropped to a purr. Donald's medical records show a history of early-onset dementia. He's been declared incompetent by 3 separate physicians, all of whom will testify that he requires constant supervision. If you try to take him from the care facility where he's been residing, you'll be charged with kidnapping a mentally incapacitated person. If you go to the police with your wild theories about medication and control, you'll be laughed out of the station. I have documentation for everything, Helen. Years of it. Legal, medical, financial, all showing that I'm his devoted daughter, managing his affairs while his memory deteriorates. The fire escape seemed to sway beneath me. She'd thought of everything, built a legal fortress around her crimes, using Donald's age and confusion as both weapon and shield. What do you want? I want you to go home, have a nice Thanksgiving with your son and his wife. Accept that Donald is gone, not dead, just gone from your life. Let Dr. Holmes prescribe something to help with your grief, and forget everything you saw this morning. Christina paused. Do that. And Donald continues receiving excellent care. Keep digging, and I'll have him transferred to a secure facility where you'll never find him. And trust me, Helen, some of those facilities are quite unpleasant, even with money. The line went dead. I clutched the railing, fighting waves of nausea. She had Donald in a facility, somewhere I couldn't reach, and she had the legal authority to move him, to lock him away permanently if I didn't back down. But she'd made one mistake. She'd admitted he was in a care facility, which meant there were records, staff, regulations, places where her control might not be absolute. I descended the fire escape quickly, ignoring the protest in my knees, and reached the alley behind the building just as I heard Ryan's voice calling my name from above. Mom, are you up here? I hurried to my car, parked 2 blocks away, and sat in the driver's seat with my hands shaking too hard to start the engine. Michael's files were on my phone, hundreds of pages of evidence. But Christina was right. Illegally obtained documents wouldn't be enough. I needed legitimate proof. I needed to find that care facility. My phone rang again. Agnes Wolcott this time. Helen, I did some digging into Morrison Holdings LLC. Her voice was tense. The company's registered agent is Christina Morrison. She's also listed as Donald's legal guardian and power of attorney, appointed by the county court 3 years ago. There was a competency hearing. Donald was present but represented by Christina's attorney. The medical testimony was comprehensive. It was all lies. She's been drugging him, Agnes. Maybe, but she's got a paper trail that says otherwise. Helen, this is bigger than I thought. Morrison Holdings has connections to several businesses under investigation for financial fraud. Shell companies, money laundering, identity theft. But everything leads back to Christina, and she's protected herself brilliantly. Even if we could prove Donald's being controlled, we'd need his testimony, and according to his medical records, he's not competent to testify. So she wins. She just wins. I didn't say that. Agnes's voice took on a new edge. I said the official channels are blocked. But you're his wife. You have rights too. And if you could get Donald away from Christina long enough to have him evaluated by independent doctors, if you could prove he's been deliberately medicated to keep him confused, that changes everything. How do I find where she's keeping him? That I can help with. Give me a few hours. In the meantime, Helen, be careful. Christina's clearly monitoring you. Don't go home. Don't go anywhere predictable. After Agnes hung up, I sat in my car trying to think clearly despite the panic clawing at my throat. I couldn't go home. Ryan was there, waiting to ambush me with doctors and concerned interventions. I couldn't go to friends. Christina seemed to have eyes everywhere. Instead, I drove to the one place Christina would never think to look, the Riverside Cemetery, where we'd held a memorial service for Donald 2 years after his disappearance. I parked near the administration building and opened my laptop, connecting to the cemetery's public Wi-Fi. Michael's files were extensive, more than I'd initially realized. Financial records showing Morrison Holdings purchasing properties across 3 states, invoices for medical supplies sent to various addresses, photographs of Donald with different people, always looking confused and compliant. And then, buried in a subfolder labeled Insurance Claims, I found it. A bill from Whispering Pines Memory Care Center, dated 3 months ago. For Donald Morrison, long-term resident care. Whispering Pines was 40 miles away, in a town called Millbrook. I pulled up their website, a pleasant-looking facility with photos of smiling elderly residents and cheerful staff. The kind of place that looked safe and legitimate. the kind of place where you could hide someone in plain sight. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. "Mom, where are you? We're worried sick. Please come home. We love you." I typed back, "I'm safe. I need some time alone. I'll call you tomorrow." Before he could respond, another text arrived from an unknown number. "Going somewhere, Helen. I told you. I'm watching." My hands went cold. I looked around the cemetery parking lot, suddenly certain Christina had somehow tracked my phone. Of course she had. If she'd accessed my bank accounts and medical files, she'd have no trouble monitoring my location. I turned off my phone completely, pulled the battery if possible. But modern smartphones didn't work that way. Instead, I wrapped it in aluminum foil from the emergency kit in my trunk, a trick I'd read about somewhere for blocking signals. It probably wouldn't work, but it might buy me a few hours. Then I drove toward Millbrook, taking random turns, doubling back, trying to spot any cars that might be following me. The afternoon sun was sinking toward the horizon, painting the November landscape in shades of amber and gray. I reached Whispering Pines just after 4 o'clock. The facility sat on a wooded lot, a sprawling single-story building with well-maintained gardens and a circular driveway. Very upscale, very expensive. All funded with money stolen from Donald's accounts and our joint property. I parked down the street, unwrapped my phone long enough to check for messages. 17 from Ryan, 5 from Lillian, 3 from numbers I didn't recognize. Then wrapped it again and approached on foot. The front entrance was locked, requiring a key code or staff access. But the gardens wrapped around the building, and I'd spent enough time visiting friends in nursing homes to know there were always side entrances for staff and deliveries. I found one near the back, a propped open door where someone had clearly stepped out for a cigarette break. I slipped inside before my conscience could stop me, finding myself in a service corridor lined with supply closets and staff lockers. Voices approached. 2 nurses discussing shift changes. I ducked into a supply closet, my heart hammering, and waited until they passed. Then I emerged and tried to orient myself. The building directory near the elevator showed 3 wings: memory care, assisted living, and rehabilitation. Donald would be in memory care. That's where they kept patients with dementia, where questions about confusion and medication would seem perfectly normal. I took the stairs to avoid security cameras in the elevator, emerging in a carpeted hallway decorated with autumn wreaths and cheerful artwork. Room numbers climbed from 301 to 320. I walked slowly, trying to look purposeful, like a family member visiting a loved one. And then I saw him. Through the window of room 314, Donald sat in a chair by the window, staring out at the darkening sky. He wore a cardigan I'd given him 5 Christmases ago, now hanging loose on his thinner frame. His hands lay motionless in his lap. I tried the door. Locked. "Can I help you?" I spun around. A nurse stood behind me, her expression polite but suspicious. Her name tag read, Bethany. "I'm here to see Donald Morrison," I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. "I'm his wife." Bethany's expression shifted to confusion, then concern. "Mrs. Morrison? But Christina just called to let us know you might try to visit. She said I'm delusional, that I'm having a breakdown because I can't accept his condition." I met her eyes directly. "What did she tell you about me? That you've been struggling with grief. That seeing him might be traumatic for you, might upset him. She asked us to call her if you showed up." Bethany's hand moved toward her pocket, presumably toward a phone. "Please." The word came out desperate. "Please, just give me 5 minutes. I haven't seen my husband in 4 years. Christina kept him from me, told me he was gone. I just need to see him, talk to him. If he's really as far gone as she claims, 5 minutes won't matter. But if he's not..." I let the implication hang. Bethany hesitated. "Christina's his legal guardian. She has full authority. I'm his wife. We were married for 31 years. Doesn't that count for anything?" Something in Bethany's expression softened. 5 minutes. And I have to stay in the room. If Christina finds out I let you in without calling first, I'll lose my job. She unlocked the door, and I stepped into my husband's room for the first time in 4 years. Donald didn't turn at the sound. He continued staring out the window, his profile heartbreakingly familiar despite the changes time had carved. I approached slowly, afraid that any sudden movement might shatter this fragile moment. "Donald?" No response. I moved into his line of sight. "Donald, it's me. It's Helen." His eyes focused on my face slowly, as if dragging themselves back from somewhere far away. For a long moment, he simply stared at me with no recognition. Then something flickered. Confusion, maybe, or the ghost of memory. "Helen," he said softly. His voice was hoarse, unused. "You shouldn't be here." "Donald, do you know where you are? Do you know how long you've been here?" He frowned, his hands moving restlessly. "Christina says I'm sick. She says I need to stay here where people can help me, but I don't. I can't remember." His eyes filled with tears. "I can't remember things anymore. Days, weeks. It all blurs together." I knelt beside his chair, taking his hands in mine. They were cold. "Donald, Christina's been lying to you. You're not sick. She's been giving you medication to keep you confused, to keep you here. She's using your identity to commit fraud." "No." He pulled his hands away, agitation rising. "No, Christina takes care of me. She's a good daughter. But he trailed off, doubt creeping into his expression. "Isn't she?" "Mrs. Morrison, I think that's enough." Bethany moved toward us. "He's getting upset. Donald, listen to me. Do you remember our house? The blue Victorian on Maple Street? Do you remember the garden we planted together? The roses you spent 3 summers getting to bloom?" "Roses." He grasped at the word like a lifeline. "Yellow roses. You wanted yellow roses because they remind you of your mother." "Yes." Hope surged through me. "Yes, exactly. Donald, you're still in there. Whatever she's been giving you, whatever she's done, you're still you. We can fix this. We can get you out of here. I can't leave. Christina says if I leave, bad things will happen. She says people are after me, trying to take everything. She's lying. She's the one who took everything. Our property, your identity, 4 years of our lives." Donald's face crumpled. "I don't know what's real anymore. Some days I can almost remember things clearly, but then Christina comes with my medication and everything goes fuzzy again. I tried to stop taking it once and He stopped, fear crossing his features. "She what, Donald?" "She said if I didn't take my medicine, she'd have to put me somewhere else. Somewhere not as nice. She showed me pictures of places with bars on the windows, people strapped to beds. She said that's where difficult patients go." Rage, pure and white-hot, flooded through me. Christina hadn't just stolen Donald's life. She'd terrorized him into compliance. "Mrs. Morrison," Bethany said urgently, "you really need to leave now. I just got a text from the front desk. Christina's on her way. She knows you're here. Come with me." I grabbed Donald's hands again. "Right now. We'll walk out together, and I'll take you somewhere safe. Somewhere we can get you real doctors who aren't on Christina's payroll." But Donald was shaking his head, pulling away. "I can't. You don't understand. If I leave, she'll find me. She always finds me. I tried once, months ago. Made it to the parking lot before they brought me back. She was so angry." His hands trembled. "You should go, Helen. Before she sees you. Before she gets angry at you, too. I'm not leaving without you. Then you're both going to have a problem." The voice came from the doorway. Christina Morrison stood there, immaculately dressed in a black suit, her dark hair pulled back severely. She looked nothing like Donald. Must have taken after her mother completely. But her eyes, cold and calculating, held a predator's focus. "Hello, Helen. I believe I told you to stay away from my father." Christina stepped fully into the room, her heels clicking against the tile floor with the precision of a countdown timer. Behind her, a security guard filled the doorway, a large man with an impassive expression and a hand resting casually on his radio. "Ms. Morrison, I'm so sorry," Bethany stammered. "She said she was his wife, and I thought just a few minutes." "It's fine, Bethany." Christina's voice was silk over steel. "You were being compassionate, but Mrs. Morrison was just leaving. Weren't you, Helen?" I stood my ground, positioning myself between Christina and Donald. "I'm not going anywhere without my husband." "Your husband." Christina's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Helen." My father hasn't been your husband in any meaningful sense for 4 years. Look at him. He barely remembers his own name most days. He needs professional care, which I've been providing at considerable personal expense. Personal expense? I couldn't keep the contempt from my voice. You mean the money you've been stealing through Morrison Holdings LLC? The rent you've been collecting from our commercial property? The assets you've been liquidating using forged documents? Something flickered in Christina's eyes. Surprise, quickly masked. She hadn't expected me to know specifics. Good. Let her realize I wasn't as helpless as she'd assumed. Those are serious accusations, she said carefully. Do you have proof? Real proof? Not conspiracy theories fueled by grief and denial? I have bank records, property transfers, photographs of you moving inventory through our building at 2 a.m, testimony from witnesses who've seen you manipulating Donald, keeping him medicated and confused. I was bluffing about some of it, but Christina didn't need to know which parts. Donald made a small sound. Distress or recognition, I couldn't tell. Christina's gaze shifted to him, and her expression softened in a way that might have seemed loving to someone who didn't know better. Dad, are you okay? Has this woman been upsetting you? This woman? My voice rose despite my intention to stay calm. I'm his wife. We were married for 31 years before you made him disappear. He didn't disappear. Christina moved closer, and I caught the scent of her perfume. Something expensive and cloying. He had a breakdown. A complete mental collapse that you were too wrapped up in your own little world to notice. I'm the one who found him wandering the streets of Richmond, confused and frightened. I'm the one who got him medical help, who arranged proper care when it became clear he couldn't function independently. The lie was so smoothly delivered that for a moment I almost doubted my own memory. But then I looked at Donald, saw the way he flinched at Christina's proximity, and I knew the truth. If that were true, why didn't you contact me? Why didn't you tell me he was alive? Because you would have interfered, just like you're interfering now. Christina's mask slipped slightly, revealing the cold calculation beneath. My father built a successful business before he met you. He had ambition, drive, then he married you, and suddenly it was all about your quiet little life, your comfortable routines. You smothered every dream he ever had. That's not true, Donald said softly, and we both turned to him in surprise. His hands were still shaking, but his voice carried a thread of certainty. Helen never smothered anything. We chose our life together. We were happy. Dad, you're confused. No. Donald's voice grew stronger. I am confused, but not about that. I remember being happy. I remember... He looked at me, and for a moment, the fog in his eyes cleared. I remember you bringing me coffee every morning. The way you'd read the newspaper out loud because I could never find my glasses. The trip we took to Maine for our anniversary, when it rained the entire week and we didn't care. Tears blurred my vision. You remember? Enough. Christina's voice cracked like a whip. She turned to the security guard. Mr. Patterson, please escort Mrs. Morrison from the premises. She's trespassing and harassing a patient. Wait. Bethany stepped forward, her voice trembling but determined. Ms. Morrison, I think. I think Mrs. Morrison might have a point. Some of the medications your father's on, the dosages seem unusually high for someone with his diagnosis, and he's always more confused right after you visit. I've noticed, but I thought... You thought what? Christina rounded on her with such sudden fury that Bethany took a step back. That you, with your associate's degree and 3 years of experience, know better than the board-certified physicians who've been treating my father? Do you want to keep your job, Bethany? I want to do what's right for the patients. Then do your job and stop listening to the paranoid delusions of a grief-stricken woman. Christina pulled out her phone. I'm calling Dr. Brennan. He'll explain my father's treatment plan to anyone who's interested. In the meantime, Mr. Patterson, remove Mrs. Morrison. Now. The security guard moved toward me, apologetic but firm. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I looked at Donald, desperate. Don't let her do this. Tell them you want to leave. Tell them you want to come with me. But Donald was shrinking back into his chair, the moment of clarity fading as fear took over. I can't. Christina, please. I don't want any trouble. There won't be any trouble, Dad. Christina placed a possessive hand on his shoulder. Mrs. Morrison is leaving. Everything's fine. No, everything is not fine. I pulled out my phone, unwrapping the aluminum foil with shaking hands. I'm calling the police, right now. I'm reporting elder abuse, fraud, and false imprisonment. Go ahead. Christina's smile was predatory. Call them. I'll have my attorney here before they finish taking your statement. And then we'll discuss how you broke into a private care facility, harassed a mentally incapacitated patient, and made wild accusations with no evidence. How do you think that will play out, Helen? Especially when your own son has been calling around looking for you, worried about your mental state? My finger hovered over the phone's screen. She was right. I could see how it would unfold. Ryan and Lillian would testify to my erratic behavior. Dr. Holmes would discuss my refusal to accept Donald's death. Christina would produce her carefully constructed paper trail of medical records and legal documents. And I'd be the one deemed unstable. Mrs. Morrison. Mr. Patterson's hand closed gently but firmly on my elbow. Please, don't make this harder than it has to be. I let him guide me toward the door, but at the threshold, I turned back. This isn't over, Christina. I will find a way to prove what you've done. I will get Donald away from you. You're welcome to try. Christina's expression was triumphant. But every day you waste on this crusade is another day my father remains in professional care, receiving the medication he needs. And the longer he's on that medication, she let the implication hang. Well, memory is such a fragile thing, isn't it? Especially at his age. The threat was crystal clear. Keep fighting, and she'd make sure Donald's confusion became permanent. Mr. Patterson escorted me through the facility and out to the parking lot, his grip remaining professional but unyielding. For what it's worth, ma'am, I hope you're wrong about all this. But if you're not... He glanced back at the building. Well, I've seen things here that didn't sit right with me either. Just be careful. Ms. Morrison has a lot of influence in this facility. He left me standing beside my car as the evening deepened into night. I sat in the driver's seat, shaking with rage and fear and the crushing weight of how thoroughly Christina had outmaneuvered me. My phone buzzed with a text from Agnes Wolcott. Found something. Meet me at the diner on Highway 9. Don't go home. Don't tell anyone where you're going. I started my car and pulled out of the parking lot, watching Whispering Pines recede in my rearview mirror. Donald was in there, trapped, being systematically erased by his own daughter's greed and cruelty. The drive to Highway 9 took 30 minutes, and with every mile I expected to see Christina's black Mercedes appear behind me. But the road remained clear, just the ordinary traffic of people heading home for Thanksgiving dinners with their families. The diner was a classic chrome and neon establishment that looked like it hadn't been updated since 1985. Agnes sat in a back booth, 2 cups of coffee already on the table. She looked exhausted, her eyes shadowed with the weight of whatever she'd discovered. You went to see him, she said, as I slid into the seat across from her. Not a question. Christina was there. She threatened me. Said if I keep fighting, she'll make sure Donald's condition becomes permanent. I wrapped my hands around the coffee cup, seeking its warmth. Agnes, she's going to erase him completely. Whatever medications she's using, they're already damaged his memory. How much longer before there's nothing left to save? That's why I called you. Agnes pulled a folder from her bag, sliding it across the table. I did some digging into Christina Morrison's background. Her business dealings. She's involved in more than just property fraud. I opened the folder, my hands trembling. Inside were printouts of financial records, corporate filings, and what looked like surveillance photographs. Christina's been running a sophisticated identity theft operation for at least 6 years, Agnes explained, keeping her voice low. She targets elderly individuals with assets, people who have memory issues or limited family oversight. She gains legal guardianship, then systematically drains their accounts while keeping them medicated and compliant. Your husband isn't her first victim, Helen. He's her 9th. The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. 9 people? How is that possible? How has no one caught her? Because she's smart. She chooses victims carefully, people whose families are distant or dysfunctional, people who've already shown signs of cognitive decline. She manufactures medical crises, gets guardianship through friendly judges, and by the time anyone questions what's happening, she's moved on to the next victim. Agnes tapped one of the photographs. This man, Gerald Whitmore, was declared incompetent 3 years ago. Christina's been his guardian ever since. His daughter tried to challenge it, but Christina had so much medical documentation that the case was dismissed. Where is he now? Dead. 6 months ago. Natural causes according to the death certificate. His assets went to Christina as per his revised will. The implication hung heavy between us. If I didn't stop Christina soon, Donald would be next. There's more, Agnes continued grimly. I pulled Christina's phone records, took some creative warrant writing, but I managed it. She's been in regular contact with someone at Whispering Pines, a Dr. Raymond Brennan. He's the one prescribing Donald's medications, and he's been doing the same for all of Christina's other wards. I think he's her partner in this, providing medical cover for what she's doing. Can we arrest them? If you have all this evidence, it's complicated. Most of this would never hold up in court. Warrants that are borderline, documentation that could be explained away, and no living victims willing or able to testify. Gerald Whitmore is dead. The other previous victims are either deceased or so mentally compromised that they can't provide coherent testimony. Agnes's expression was grim, and Donald's medical records make him look incompetent. Even if we got him away from Christina, any defense attorney would shred his testimony in minutes. So what do? We need Christina to make a mistake, a big one, something that can't be explained away by paperwork and friendly doctors. Agnes leaned forward. Helen, I need you to do something difficult. I need you to back off. Publicly. What? No, I can't just... Listen to me. Christina thinks she's won. Let her believe that. Go home, apologize to Ryan and Lillian, see Dr. Holmes, play the role of the grieving widow accepting reality. Make Christina think you're not a threat anymore. While she continues drugging Donald? While we build a real case. Agnes's eyes were intense. I'm going to keep investigating, but I need time. If Christina knows you're actively fighting her, she'll accelerate whatever endgame she has planned for Donald. But if she thinks you've given up, she'll get comfortable. Comfortable people make mistakes. Every instinct screamed against the idea of standing down, of leaving Donald in Christina's clutches even one more day. But I could see the logic in Agnes's plan, brutal as it was. How long? Give me a week, maybe 2. I've got connections at the state level. People who handle elder abuse cases. If I can get them interested, we might be able to push for a surprise welfare check on all of Christina's wards, including Donald. That would bypass her lawyers and give us a chance to get Donald evaluated by independent doctors. And if something happens to him before then? Agnes's silence was answer enough. My phone rang. Ryan again. This time, I answered. Mom. Oh, thank goodness. Where are you? We've been worried sick. I'm okay, honey. I'm sorry I ran off. You're right. I haven't been thinking clearly. The lies tasted bitter, but necessary. I had an episode. Thought I saw your father, but it was just someone who looked like him. Dr. Holmes was right. I need help accepting that he's really gone. The relief in Ryan's voice was palpable. It's okay, Mom. We understand. Are you coming home? Lillian kept dinner warm. We can talk about getting you into some grief counseling, maybe finding you a support group. I'll be there in an hour. And Ryan? Thank you for not giving up on me. After I hung up, Agnes gave me a look of grim approval. That was good. Convincing. It was horrible. I stared at the cold coffee. I just lied to my son and agreed to pretend my husband is dead while his daughter slowly destroys his mind. You agreed to be strategic instead of emotional. There's a difference. Agnes gathered her files. Go home. Play your part. And Helen? Don't contact Donald. Don't go back to Whispering Pines. Don't give Christina any reason to think you're still fighting. Can you do that? I thought about Donald's face when he'd remembered the yellow roses. The moment of clarity before fear dragged him back under. The way Christina's hand had rested on his shoulder like a keeper securing a captive. I can do it, I said. For 2 weeks. But after that, if your investigation hasn't produced results, I'm going back for him. With or without the law's help. Fair enough. Agnes stood, leaving money for the coffee. I'll be in touch. Use Signal if you need to message me. It's encrypted. And Helen? Watch your back. Christina has resources we're only beginning to understand. I drove home through the cold November night, rehearsing my performance. The grieving widow, the confused woman accepting reality, the mother grateful for her son's intervention. All while my husband remained trapped, his memories being chemically erased day by day. When I pulled into my driveway, Ryan and Lillian were waiting on the porch, their expressions a mixture of relief and concern. I pasted on a trembling smile and stepped into their embrace, letting them guide me inside to the Thanksgiving dinner that had grown cold hours ago. "We're going to get through this together," Ryan said, his arm around my shoulders. "Yes," I agreed, thinking of Christina's triumphant smile, of Donald's frightened eyes, of all the pieces I needed to assemble before I could strike back. Together. But as I sat at the table, forcing myself to eat and nod and pretend normalcy, my mind was already working. 2 weeks. Agnes wanted 2 weeks of patience and investigation. I'd give her one. After that, Christina Morrison was going to learn that underestimating a determined 63-year-old woman was the biggest mistake she'd ever made. The week that followed was the most difficult performance of my life. I smiled through Thanksgiving leftovers with Ryan and Lillian. I attended 2 sessions with Dr. Holmes, where I spoke carefully about accepting reality and moving forward. I even joined a grief support group at the community center, sitting in a circle of widows and widowers who shared stories of loss that made my deception feel like a betrayal. But every night, alone in my house, I worked. Michael Alvarez had given me more than just photographs and financial records. Buried in his files was something Christina hadn't known existed: security footage from the storage facility. Michael had befriended the night manager, who'd given him access to the backup drives that weren't connected to the main system, the ones that stored footage for months instead of being automatically deleted after 30 days. I spent hours watching grainy videos of Christina arriving at odd hours, always with Donald in tow. In some clips, he moved normally, spoke coherently to the workers helping load boxes. In others, always after Christina had been alone with him, he shuffled like a sleepwalker, his responses delayed and confused. The pattern was unmistakable. Whatever she was giving him, the effects were immediate and dramatic. Agnes called on the 5th day, her voice tight with controlled excitement. "I got approval for the welfare check. State Elder Services will visit Whispering Pines on Monday morning, unannounced. They'll interview all of Christina's wards separately, including Donald. If the doctors find evidence of over-medication or improper care, they can remove the patients immediately. That's 3 days away. I know it feels like forever. But Helen, this is our shot. If the state finds what we think they'll find, Christina won't be able to hide behind her lawyers. This is criminal charges, possible jail time." Agnes paused. "Can you hold out until Monday?" "Yes," I lied. Because the previous night, I'd received a message that changed everything. It had come through Facebook, of all places. A message request from someone named Beth Walker. The profile picture showed a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair. "Mrs. Morrison, you don't know me, but I know what Christina Morrison is doing. My father was one of her victims. He died last year, and I've spent every day since trying to prove what she did to him. I have evidence. Recordings, documents, things even the police don't know about. But I need your help. Can we meet?" I'd stared at that message for an hour, weighing the risks. It could be a trap. Christina could have created a fake profile, could be trying to lure me into doing something that would discredit me before the welfare check. But if Beth Walker was real, if she had evidence, I'd agreed to meet her Saturday afternoon at a neutral location, the Riverside Public Library, where Mrs. Patterson would see us and could serve as a witness if needed. Now, as I drove to the library through cold December rain, I kept checking my mirrors for Christina's Mercedes. The streets looked normal. Holiday shoppers hurrying between stores, families bundled against the weather. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Beth Walker was waiting at our agreed-upon table, a thick folder in front of her. She looked like her profile picture, but older up close, worn down by grief and anger. "Mrs. Morrison." She stood, offering her hand. "Thank you for meeting me. I know this must seem strange." Strange is relative at this point. I sat across from her, studying her face for signs of deception. Tell me about your father. Daniel Walker. He was 72 when Christina got her hooks into him. My mother had just passed away, and Dad was struggling. Christina approached him at a grief support group. Can you believe that? She trolls those groups looking for vulnerable people. Beth's voice shook with barely contained rage. She befriended him, convinced him she was helping manage his finances while he recovered. Within 6 months, she had power of attorney and guardianship. Within a year, Dad didn't recognize me anymore. How did she do it? Beth opened the folder, revealing prescription bottles, medical records, and pages of handwritten notes. Dr. Raymond Brennan prescribed increasingly high doses of benzodiazepines and antipsychotics, drugs that cause confusion and memory loss. Christina told everyone Dad had dementia. By the time I realized what was happening, Dad had been declared incompetent. I tried to fight it, hired lawyers, but Christina's documentation was flawless. Your father died? 6 months ago. Heart failure, supposedly. But Mrs. Morrison, I was with him the day before he died. He was doing better, more alert. He told me Christina had stopped bringing his medicine because she said he didn't need it anymore. The next day, he was dead. Beth's eyes filled with tears. I think she killed him. I think once she'd drained his accounts and didn't need him anymore, she eliminated the evidence. My blood ran cold. Do you have proof? Not the kind that would hold up in court, but I have this. She pulled out a small digital recorder. 3 weeks before Dad died, he had a lucid day. He called me, frantic, saying Christina was coming and he needed to tell me everything before he forgot again. I recorded it. She pressed play. Daniel Walker's voice, thin but clear, filled the space between us. Beth, honey, you have to listen. Christina's been drugging me. She puts something in my food, in my drinks. When I take it, I can't think straight, can't remember things. She's been taking money from my accounts, using my name to sign documents. She showed me papers once, told me if I didn't cooperate, she'd have me committed to a state facility. Said she'd make sure I never saw you again. His voice broke. I tried to stop her once, refused the medication. She got so angry. She said her whole operation would fall apart if one of us started talking. One of us. Beth. There are others. Other people she's doing this to. You have to stop her. You have to. The recording cut off abruptly. She came in, Beth explained. I heard her voice in the background, sweet as honey, asking Dad who he was talking to. He said it was a telemarketer. She took his phone away after that. I didn't hear from him again until the facility called to say he'd passed. I sat back, processing this new horror. Christina's operation was even larger than Agnes had discovered. And if Beth was right about her father's death, why didn't you go to the police with this? I did. They said it was hearsay, that Dad's mental state made him unreliable. Christina's lawyers threatened to sue me for harassment. I've been investigating on my own, gathering evidence, looking for other victims. When I heard about your husband, saw you at Whispering Pines, I've been watching the facility, Mrs. Morrison, documenting everyone who goes in and out. I knew I had to contact you. The welfare check, I said urgently. There's a state investigation scheduled for Monday. If you bring this evidence, Monday might be too late. Beth leaned forward. Mrs. Morrison, Christina's been moving money aggressively this past week. I've been monitoring the accounts I could track. She's liquidating assets, transferring funds offshore. I think she knows something's coming. And if she's following the pattern from my father, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. If Christina thought she was about to be exposed, she'd eliminate her victims before they could testify, starting with Donald. What do you suggest? Beth pulled out another document, a photocopy of employee schedules from Whispering Pines. Tonight is Saturday. Skeleton staff on weekends. Dr. Brennan doesn't come in. Christina usually visits on Saturdays, but according to the sign-in log, she was just there yesterday, which means she probably won't be back until Monday. She circled a name on the schedule. Bethany Cooper is working the night shift in memory care. She's the nurse who let you see your husband, right? The one who questioned the medication dosages? I nodded slowly, seeing where this was going. We get him out tonight. While Christina thinks you've given up, while the facility is understaffed, while we still can. That's kidnapping. Even if he's my husband, Christina has legal guardianship. And on Monday, when the state investigates, he'll be available for independent medical evaluation. They'll find evidence of over-medication. Christina's guardianship will be revoked, and you'll have saved your husband's life. Beth's expression was fierce. Or you can wait until Monday and hope Christina doesn't decide to cut her losses first. Every rational part of my brain screamed that this was insane, that I should call Agnes, wait for the official investigation, do things through proper channels. But I thought of Daniel Walker's frightened voice on that recording, of Gerald Whitmore's convenient death, of 9 victims, probably more, whose lives Christina had destroyed. And I thought of Donald, sitting in that room, his memories being systematically erased while his daughter looted everything we'd built together. "What's your plan?" I asked. Beth smiled grimly. "I've been planning this for 6 months. Ever since Dad died, I just needed someone on the inside, someone with a legitimate reason to be there." She spread out blueprints of Whispering Pines. God knew how she'd obtained those, and began explaining. The shift change at 7, the medication distribution at 8, the window between 8:30 and 9 when the night staff took their dinner break, leaving only one nurse on duty in memory care. "Bethany will help us," I said. "She already suspected something was wrong." "Can you be sure?" "No. But I think she became a nurse because she wanted to help people. If we give her the choice between following orders and doing what's right," I left it hanging. We spent the next 2 hours reviewing every detail, every contingency. Beth had burner phones, a car with fake plates she'd borrowed from a friend who owed her a favor, and a contact at a medical facility 2 states away, a place specializing in toxicology and emergency psychiatric care, where Donald could be evaluated safely away from Christina's reach. It was elaborate and risky and probably illegal in a dozen ways. It was also our only chance. At 6 o'clock, I went home and changed into dark, practical clothes. I left a note for Ryan on the kitchen table. "Gone to visit an old friend for the weekend. Need some time to clear my head. Don't worry. Love you. Mom." Then I drove to meet Beth at a gas station 5 miles from Whispering Pines, where we switched to her borrowed car, a nondescript gray sedan that wouldn't trigger any recognition. "You're sure about this?" Beth asked as we approached the facility. "Once we do this, there's no going back. Even if everything works out, Christina will come after you with everything she has." "I'm sure." We parked in the visitor lot at 7:15. Through the windows, we could see the shift change happening. Day staff leaving, night staff arriving. At 7:30, I walked through the front entrance alone while Beth remained in the car, monitoring the situation via security cameras she'd somehow managed to hack into. The front desk was staffed by someone I didn't recognize, a young man absorbed in his phone. I signed in as a visitor for a resident in the assisted living wing, someone whose name I'd picked at random from the directory. "Room 205, the attendant said without looking up. "Visiting hours end at 9. I walked toward the assisted living wing, but once out of sight, I doubled back toward memory care. My heart hammered against my ribs. Every footstep seemed impossibly loud. Beth's voice came through the wireless earbud she'd given me. "You're clear. Bethany just entered the medication room. You've got maybe 3 minutes." I reached room 314. The door was locked, but I'd expected that. I knocked softly. "Donald? It's Helen. I need you to open the door." Silence. Then shuffling footsteps. The lock clicked, and Donald's face appeared in the gap, confused and wary. "Helen, it's late. Christina said you weren't supposed to visit anymore." "I know. But Donald, I need you to trust me. Something bad is going to happen, and we need to leave. Right now." "I can't leave. Christina said—" "Christina's been lying to you." I pushed the door open wider, stepping inside. "She's been drugging you, stealing from you, and I think she's planning to hurt you." "Please, Donald. Do you remember what you told me last time? About the yellow roses? About being happy?" His eyes searched my face, and I saw the war happening behind them. Confusion versus buried memory. Fear versus recognition. "I don't know what's real anymore." "Then trust what you feel. Do you feel safe here? Do you feel like yourself?" "No." The word came out broken. No, I feel lost. Like I'm disappearing a little more every day. Then come with me. Let me help you find your way back. He stared at me for another endless moment. Then slowly, he nodded. Beth's voice crackled in my ear. Someone's coming. You need to move now. I grabbed Donald's coat from the closet, helped him into it with trembling hands. We stepped into the hallway just as footsteps approached from the other direction. This way, I whispered, guiding him toward the emergency exit Beth had indicated on the blueprints. We'd made it halfway when Bethany appeared at the end of the corridor, her eyes widening as she saw us. Mrs. Morrison, what are you doing? I froze, my hand tight on Donald's arm. This was it. The moment where our plan either worked or collapsed completely. Bethany, please. I know this looks wrong, but Christina's been hurting him. You said yourself the medication dosages were wrong. Help me get him somewhere safe, just until Monday when the state investigators come. Bethany looked between us, her face agonized with indecision. I could lose my job, my license, and Donald could lose his life. I held her gaze. You became a nurse to help people. Help him now. For 5 seconds that felt like hours. Bethany stood frozen. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a key card. The emergency exit alarm is disabled for maintenance. You've got maybe 10 minutes before anyone notices he's gone. She pressed the card into my hand. There are security cameras, but I can say I was in the medication room. I didn't see anything. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just make sure this is worth it. Make sure you can prove what she's been doing. We hurried toward the exit, Donald moving slowly but steadily beside me. Beth was waiting with the car running, passenger door open. Getting Donald into the vehicle felt like an eternity. Every sound made me flinch, expecting alarms or shouts or security guards. But we pulled away from Whispering Pines without incident, the facility receding in the mirrors as Beth drove carefully, staying exactly at the speed limit. Where are we going? Donald asked from the back seat, his voice small. Somewhere safe, I told him. Somewhere Christina can't reach you. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You stupid woman. You have no idea what you've done. Christina knew. Already. Which meant our 10-minute head start was about to become a race against everything Christina could throw at us. Lawyers, police, private investigators, and resources I couldn't even imagine. But Donald was free. After 4 years, my husband was finally free. Now, I just had to keep him that way. We drove through the night in silence, Donald dozing fitfully in the back seat, while Beth navigated back roads and small highways, avoiding toll cameras and major intersections. My phone buzzed constantly. Christina, Ryan, numbers I didn't recognize. But I'd turned off the location services and ignored every call. Around midnight, we stopped at a rest area. Beth went inside to get coffee while I sat with Donald, watching him sleep. Even in rest, his face held tension, as if his body remembered the constant vigilance required to survive under Christina's control. We're about an hour away, Beth said when she returned, handing me a paper cup of terrible coffee. Dr. Patricia Hammond runs the facility. She's a toxicology specialist who's testified in elder abuse cases before. She'll know what to look for. Will she report this? We technically kidnapped him. She'll document everything. His condition when we arrive, the medications in his system, his mental state. That documentation will protect us when Christina tries to press charges. Beth's expression was grim. And she will try. This is going to get ugly before it gets better. She was right, of course. I'd just committed a crime, no matter how justified. But looking at Donald's sleeping face, I couldn't regret it. We arrived at Clearwater Medical Center just after 1 a.m. It looked nothing like Whispering Pines, a small clinical building tucked into a wooded area, with security cameras and coded entry doors. Dr. Hammond met us in the parking lot. A tall black woman in her late 50s with sharp eyes and an air of competent authority. Mrs. Morrison, Ms. Walker, let's get him inside quickly. The next 2 hours blurred together. Blood draws, neurological assessments, detailed questioning that Donald struggled to answer coherently. Dr. Hammond worked with quiet efficiency, her expression growing progressively darker as she reviewed the results. Finally, she gestured for Beth and me to follow her into her office, leaving Donald resting in a private room with a nurse monitoring him. "What you've described matches what I'm seeing, Dr. A," Hammond said without preamble, pulling up lab results on her computer. "Mr. Morrison has dangerously high levels of 3 different medications in his system: lorazepam, haloperidol, and something I'm still trying to identify. The combination is designed to cause confusion, memory impairment, and docility. Whoever prescribed this regimen knew exactly what they were doing. How long until it's out of his system? The metabolites will clear within days, but the cognitive effects—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Mrs. Morrison, your husband has been on these medications for years. There may be permanent damage. It's too early to know how much of his baseline function he'll recover." The words hit like a physical blow. "You're saying even if we stop Christina, even if we prove what she's done, Donald might never fully come back?" "I'm saying we don't know yet. The brain is remarkably resilient, but it has limits. The best thing we can do now is keep him safe, let the medications clear, and start cognitive rehabilitation." Dr. Hammond's expression softened slightly. "But Mrs. Morrison, you need to understand what's coming. Christina Morrison will have lawyers, medical experts, and legal guardians on her side. She'll paint you as a delusional woman who kidnapped a mentally incompetent patient. You need to be prepared for a fight." "I am prepared." My voice came out stronger than I felt. "I have evidence. Financial records, witness testimony, recordings. None of which will matter if you're arrested before you can present it." Dr. Hammond turned to Beth. "You said Detective Woolcott was investigating?" "She arranged a welfare check for Monday morning. But that's—" Beth checked her watch. 28 hours away. Christina will move before then. Then we need to move first." Dr. Hammond picked up her phone. "I have contacts at the State Attorney General's office. Elder abuse cases fall under their jurisdiction, and they have the authority to act immediately if there's evidence of imminent danger. Can you get me everything you have?" For the next hour, we compiled our evidence. Michael Alvarez's files, Beth's recording of her father, the security footage showing Donald's condition before and after Christina's visits, financial records proving systematic theft. Dr. Hammond added her medical assessment, documenting the dangerous medication levels and her professional opinion that Donald had been deliberately over-medicated to maintain control. At 3 a.m, Dr. Hammond sent everything to an attorney named Catherine Reeves at the AG's office, with a note marked, "Urgent, elder abuse, multiple victims." "Now we wait," she said, "and hope Catherine moves fast." I couldn't wait in that office, couldn't sit still while Christina mobilized her resources. Instead, I went to Donald's room, where he was finally sleeping peacefully, his breathing steady and unlabored. "I'm sorry," I whispered, taking his hand. "I'm sorry I didn't find you sooner. I'm sorry I let her do this to you." His eyes flickered open, clearer than they'd been in days. "Helen, I'm here. Are we safe?" "Yes." I squeezed his hand gently. "You're safe now." I was so scared. His voice cracked. "Every day I'd wake up and not know where I was or how I got there. Christina would tell me things, that you didn't want me anymore, that I'd done something terrible and couldn't go home. I wanted to fight, but the medicine made everything so foggy. I couldn't think, couldn't remember what was true. It's over now. She can't hurt you anymore, but she'll try." Donald's grip tightened on my hand. "Helen, you don't know what she's capable of. I heard her once, on the phone with someone, talking about solving problems permanently. I think some of the other people in the facility, the ones who disappeared." He couldn't finish, but he didn't need to. Beth's father, Gerald Whitmore. How many others? My phone rang. Agnes Woolcott. I answered immediately. "Helen, what the hell did you do?" Agnes's voice was tight with controlled fury. "Christina filed a kidnapping report. There's an APB out for your vehicle. Every police department in 3 states is looking for you. I'm at Clearwater Medical Center with Dr. Patricia Hammond. We have evidence, Agnes. Medical proof that Donald was being deliberately over-medicated. Financial records showing systematic theft. Witness testimony from other victims. You should have waited for the welfare check. We didn't have time. Christina was moving money, liquidating assets. She was preparing to run or—" I couldn't say the rest. Agnes was silent for a long moment. "Where exactly are you?" I told her, and she swore softly. "That's outside my jurisdiction. But Helen, listen to me carefully. Don't leave that facility. Don't talk to any local police without a lawyer present. I'm going to make some calls, see if I can get someone from the AG's office to take this seriously before Christina's lawyers descend. Dr. Hammond already sent everything to Catherine Reeves." "Catherine? Oh, thank God. If anyone will move on this, it's her." Agnes's tone shifted slightly. "Okay, here's what's going to happen. Christina's lawyers will show up with court orders demanding Donald's return. Don't comply. Make them go through the AG's office. Every hour we buy is another hour for Donald's system to clear, another hour of documentation proving he was over-medicated. And if they arrest me, then you spend a few hours in custody while lawyers sort it out. But Helen, you did the right thing, even if it was completely illegal." After she hung up, I returned to Donald's room to find him awake and sitting up, looking more alert than I'd seen him since the coffee shop encounter that felt like a lifetime ago. "How are you feeling?" "Strange, like I'm waking up from a very long dream." He studied his hands as if seeing them for the first time. "Things are still fuzzy, but clearer than they've been in, I don't even know how long." "What year is it?" 2024, December. He calculated silently. 4 years. She kept me confused and compliant for 4 years. The grief in his voice was devastating. "Helen, I missed 4 years of our life. I don't even remember most of it, just fragments. And some of those fragments..." He shuddered. "There were other people at Whispering Pines, other patients who seemed like me, confused, medicated, visited regularly by Christina or Dr. Brennan. An old man named Thomas used to sit next to me at meals. He'd tell me stories about his granddaughter, but every time Christina visited him, he'd forget more and more. Then one day, he was just gone. The nurses said he'd been transferred to another facility, but..." Donald's eyes filled with tears. "I think she killed him. I think when she was done draining his accounts, she killed him and made it look natural. We're going to prove what she did," I promised. "All of it." But even as I said it, I heard voices in the hallway. Raised, argumentative. A man's voice, authoritative and angry. "I have legal guardianship papers and a court order demanding his immediate return. If you don't comply, I'll have you arrested for obstruction." Christina's lawyer had arrived. Dr. Hammond appeared in the doorway, her expression grim but determined. "Mrs. Morrison, there are several gentlemen here demanding to see you and Mr. Morrison. I told them visiting hours don't start until 8, but they're threatening legal action. Let them threaten." I stood, moving protectively between the door and Donald. "We're not going anywhere until the Attorney General's office weighs in. That could take days. Then it takes days." The lawyer, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit, pushed past Dr. Hammond into the room. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm Gerald Blackwell, representing Christina Morrison. You're in violation of multiple court orders and criminal statutes. If you don't release Mr. A. Morrison into my custody immediately, I'll have no choice but to involve law enforcement. Be my guest. I'm sure they'll be very interested in the evidence we've compiled showing systematic elder abuse, fraud, and possible homicide." Blackwell's confident expression flickered. "Those are serious accusations. Do you have proof?" "Medical documentation showing dangerous levels of psychoactive medications. Financial records showing systematic theft. Witness testimony from other victims." I met his eyes steadily. "How much did Christina tell you about her operations, Mr. Blackwell? Did she mention the 8 other people she's done this to? Did she mention that at least 2 of them are dead under suspicious circumstances? That's slander." "It's truth. And when the Attorney General's office reviews our evidence, you're going to have a choice to make about whether you want to be charged as an accessory." Blackwell's jaw tightened. He pulled out his phone, stepping into the hallway. Through the open door, I heard fragments of his conversation. "More complicated than you indicated. Medical evidence. Might want to reconsider." Then another voice, sharp and familiar. "Get out of my way." Christina swept into the room like an avenging angel, her perfect composure finally cracked. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smudged, and her eyes blazed with fury. You stupid, sentimental fool. She advanced on me, and I saw Dr. Hammond tense, ready to intervene. Do you have any idea what you've cost me? Years of careful planning, millions of dollars in assets, all because you couldn't accept that he was gone. He wasn't gone. You took him. You drugged him and terrorized him and used him like a puppet while you destroyed everything we built together. Everything you built? Christina laughed, the sound brittle and slightly unhinged. You built nothing. You were an anchor around my father's neck, dragging him down into mediocrity. He could have been so much more, accomplished so much more, if you hadn't trapped him in your pathetic little life. I loved him. That's something you clearly can't understand. Love? Christina's voice dripped with contempt. Love is a weakness, a tool for manipulation. My mother loved my father too, and look where it got her. Divorced and discarded the moment someone younger and prettier came along. She glared at me with pure hatred. You took my father from me. You turned him against me, poisoned him with your middle-class values and small-minded morality. Well, congratulations, Helen. You've won. You've got him back. But you won't have him for long. The threat hung in the air, unmistakable. Christina Morrison, step away from the patient. We all turned. A woman in a crisp business suit stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 state police officers. She held up a badge. Catherine Reeves, Assistant Attorney General. Ms. Morrison, I have questions about your guardianship of Donald Morrison and 8 other individuals. You have the right to remain silent. I watched Christina's face cycle through shock, rage, and finally cold calculation as the officer read her rights. Blackwell was already backing away, distancing himself from his client with the speed of a practiced survivor. This is a witch hunt, Christina said icily as they handcuffed her, based on fabricated evidence and the delusions of a grief-stricken woman. My lawyers will have this dismissed by Monday. Your lawyers are welcome to try. Catherine Reeves's voice was professionally neutral, but I caught a glimmer of satisfaction in her eyes. In the meantime, we'll be conducting welfare checks on all your current wards and exhuming the bodies of your deceased ones. I'm sure everything will check out fine. As they led Christina away, she turned back to stare at me with such venom that I felt it like a physical force. This isn't over. Yes, I said quietly. It is. 3 months later, I stood in our garden, the real one, at our house on Maple Street, watching Donald examine the rose bushes with the focused attention of someone relearning a beloved task. The charges against me had been dropped within a week, once the full scope of Christina's operation came to light. She was being held without bail, facing charges in multiple states. Dr. Brennan had turned state's evidence, providing detailed testimony about the medication regimens he'd prescribed and the payments Christina had made to secure his cooperation. 8 other victims were found, all showing signs of similar over-medication and financial exploitation. 2 exhumations revealed suspicious medication levels that warranted homicide investigations. Beth Walker was finally getting justice for her father. Donald's recovery was slow but steady. The medications had cleared his system, and with intensive cognitive therapy, his memory was gradually returning. Some things were lost forever. Years of our life together, moments we'd never get back. But other things remained. His love of gardening, his terrible jokes, the way he still reached for my hand in his sleep. The yellow roses need pruning, he called out, and I smiled at the certainty in his voice. If we do it now, they'll bloom beautifully in spring. Ryan and Lillian were inside, preparing lunch. My son had apologized 100 times for doubting me, for trying to have me evaluated. I'd forgiven him easily. He'd been trying to protect me, just as I'd been trying to protect Donald. My phone buzzed with a text from Agnes Wolcott. Trial date set for August. Prosecution is confident. You did good, Helen. I looked at Donald, kneeling in the dirt of our garden, his hands gentle on the roses we'd planted together a lifetime ago. At 63, I'd learned that some loves are worth fighting for, that patience and wisdom can triumph over youth and arrogance, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to accept what everyone tells you is inevitable. Christina had been right about one thing. I was sentimental. I believed in love and loyalty and the quiet strength that comes from building a life with someone over decades. but she'd been wrong about everything else. Those weren't weaknesses. They were the reasons I'd won. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.